I get childcare again on Friday and then World gets body.
Okay, Madam Mayor, I believe you have a quorum.
Okay, let's start this meeting. What's this little thing? Okay, so the first thing is roll call. Yep.
Councilmember Lane? Here. Councilmember Whitmer?
Yep.
Councilmember Lewis is absent, excused absence. Vice Mayor DeGolia?
Yes.
Mayor Holland?
Here.
And from the Finance Committee, we have Chair Hill, and there online is Stephen Brickley, but he doesn't count for quorum purposes, so he's here to.
Why does he not count? I thought that we passed a provision that allowed people.
This location wasn't noticed.
Yes.
No, but that's the emergency. The new law lets you do this as long as you pass the provision.
We haven't passed the subsidiary meetings yet. That's coming up on your next agenda.
Oh.
Even if we could participate, there's still a quorum.
Yeah, there's still.
That's
And
what
George,
doesn't matter.
George, we don't have microphones. That's okay for this meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, because that machine.
Now
The
we'll be
walls
good.
are listed.
Get started on it.
Yeah.
The walls have ears. The walls have ears.
Okay, so Steve, we'll just treat you like, I won't be able to see you when you raise your hand, but
Yeah.
we'll just treat you like a
Yeah.
regular
I get it.
participating member. No, but you'll be a participating member, not a regular.
Right.
Regular public. Okay, so public comment. There's no one in the room. Is there anyone online that wants to do public comment for items on the agenda? Unless Brittany wants to weigh in. No? Okay. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is our budget. Wow.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, Finance Committee, and members of the public. Before you today is the second budget study session of our 26-27 year. This budget study session discusses the general fund operations of the town, which is the major operations fund for us. So a majority, we spend this study session discussing the operation for the town. So quick highlights, this stuff that was from your staff report. You have your staff report with you. This is a condensed version of it. So within the highlights 26-27, we project general fund revenues of 26.2 million. And we project general fund expenditures of 23.3 million. This produces a single year revenue surplus of 2.87 million. And overall expenditures increased 606,000 to the adjusted budget this year, 2.6%. That is the increase in 26.7 in the overall operations budget. So revenue sources, again, this will just kind of recapture our general fund and our major sources of revenue. And those are the property taxes, charges for that 68%, almost 70%. Fees and miscellaneous at 5%, franchise fees at 4%. Other taxes, which is business license and intergovernmental, is at 2%. And then the charges for services, that's our community development, basically public works, building, planning, and these services that we have charges for services. Just a brief highlight on our general fund one-time revenues. We have one-time revenues that are not included in the basic general fund operating revenues, and that's the ERAP. The ERAP is a component of revenue that we have the last 10 years budgeted below the line purposely. This is one of those revenues that we figured that eventually be taken by the state. The budget this year is 2.75 million. I discussed at the previous budget study session. We have been budgeting it at about 2.5 million every year. And this year in 25-26, we received a little bit over 3 million. So 2.06 million in ERAC revenue. So in this budget, we are increasing the budget 250,000 for this revenue from 2.5 to 8 million. And again, it's not included in the general fund basic operations revenue below the line, so, but it still flows through our unallocated general fund balance. Other highlights for 26-27 is our property tax and literally LF. We discussed that this has become, other than ERAC, this has become the most vulnerable revenue that we have witnessed this past couple of years. 23-24, we have a revenue of VLF due with 1.65 million. we currently still have a shortfall of 232,000. 24-25 BLF amount due is 1.758 million. Shortfall of 740,000 remains. And forgive me, I didn't include in here the 25-26 was in last budget study session. It's about 788,000 shortfall. We're due 1.76 million for 25-26. So we have a shortfall of 788,000. So the total shortfall of these 3 fiscal years is about 1.76 million outstanding. That is a shortfall to us. So again, it's a critical revenue component that we continue to monitor and hopefully the state can help and fix this. Refuge franchise fees, again, just a high summary. The franchise fees reduced from our 10% to 5%. This is the second year that it will be reduced. So the reduction revenue is about approximately 160,000. As normal revenue, it's about 430,000. We estimate about 270,000 in the budget for franchise fees. Other expenditure highlights for general fund
Before you
is
get to that,
yes.
on your revenue, you've included alarm fees, $65,000. And we've been talking about eliminating them, so that's gonna be in the next meeting,
Yes.
but you might wanna take those out at this point in time. That's on page,
Yeah, on the summary report.
page 20 of 62.
Yeah, anything we discuss here will be updated in the next iteration. Thank you for that. You got it.
The rest of it looked okay to me, but that was discrepancy.
All right, and no,
You didn't.
oh, you're right.
I told George, I'm surprised he didn't mention it.
No, he did. I just didn't bring it up. I'm sorry I didn't bring that part up.
You're skipping ahead on the slides.
No, we've already talked about the
It's a whole
revenue.
slide dedicated.
Well, I read it back.
Yeah, we got it, but thank you for that note. Again, the expenditure, and again, in the staff report, the property taxes, we discussed it, we increased the, by 5%.
Yeah.
And not all of it was by 5%, a lot of it had to do because of the VOF component. That wasn't mentioned here in the PowerPoint, but it is, so it is.
And what's the projection for BLF? It's still in the general fund, is that right?
Yes, it's still in the general fund.
And the projection for BLF is,
Right now, it's about 1.3 million. It should be higher. It should be about 1.8 million. But I budgeted 1.3 million in anticipation of getting half of what we're supposed to receive, and then plus hopefully the shortfall that is outstanding from previous years.
so 1.3 is projected for 26-27.
Correct.
And your slide didn't show what BLF was for 25-26.
Correct. No, it didn't. And it is 1.7. Yeah, 1.76 is the total shortfall, include which.
Wait, that's the shortfall, but what was, so what you showed for 24-25 was that 1.758 was due and there was a shortfall of 740,000.
Correct.
And what is the comparable information for 25-26?
25-26, we are supposed to receive, it's in the staff report.
Pretty similar.
1.872.
Yes.
1.872 was what was due?
Yeah, sorry, 1.872 is in the chart. There, we received 1,084,000, and there's the shortfall of 788,000.
Okay, great.
So when I add that 788,000 plus the 24-25 and the 23-24
Right.
shortfalls, we're at 1,761,000, equivalent of one full year of BLF revenue.
No, tables on page 6.
Yeah.
26, up 6.
Yeah.
At the top.
Yeah, so when I was looking at this, like, I didn't put the 25-26, but yeah, and the staff report was in there, so 1.76 is total shortfall right now. Let's see.
And we're on salary benefit.
Okay, sorry, man.
Oh, not paying.
I guess not. So the salary benefits, so we have, it's 2.5% is the CPI. That is, in there, for the 25, 26, 27, so equivalent of a 310,000. CalPERS total UAL increase of 183,000 over, what we actually paid in 25, 26. Housing element related decreases about 42,000 in planning, as we're winding down on the housing element expenses. And then there was additional adjustments across the different departments of facility, infrastructure, maintenance cost, building, contract services, planning, contract service cost. And then the OPEB operation cost, we're still experiencing that, and that's about 530,000 for this fiscal year in expenditure relief, because we're using the OPEB PARS trust to pay the retired health benefit. New here is the workers' compensation, new meaning that it increased 114,000. Listed in your staff report, the reason why is we're with the new JPA, and the percentages were 1% of salary for all departments. We kept them the same except for the PD component, the PD sworn officers, we increased that to 4%. So the increase is about 118,000 in the workers' comp, 114,000 workers' comp for this year.
One of the reasons that the workers' comp is a little higher is, like Robert said, it's a new JPA, and they don't have the same experience with their member agencies as the member agency group that we were with before. So the mod rates are a little higher, and then they'll reduce over time.
Yeah, we joined half a year.
Yeah.
And can you just speak briefly to the housing element decreasing?
It's because there's less special projects.
Wait, but that's for the projection for 26, 27 versus 25, 26. I would have thought our budget for 25, 26 was a lot higher because we were processing so much.
Some of the things are still going on, like the inclusionary housing ordinance, which is finishing, SB 79. Those things are still going through this fiscal year and will be into next fiscal year for something.
The net decrease you showed for OPEB, it's not a decrease over the current.
Sorry. It's a decrease for this year. Like if we paid the OPEB retiree health out of this year, it would cost us 530,000. So it's basically, it's just showing the savings.
Yeah.
The savings.
Yeah, it's not a decrease over what we actually incurred this year.
It's a savings, and I missed with that, but I'm trying to show within the stock report that that's the savings we're having in the general fund. We could do that, you had 538,000 pounds, but. Good question. And then again, just the general fund revenues, this is just a high level. Mayor said, this is within the PowerPoint. So 17.8 million taxes, ERAC, we see it's individual 2.7, and then all our charges for services about 4.6 million. License and intergovernment, that's the business license and other intergovernment. His license is about 260 of that, 352. Use of property money, 1.89 million. Majority of that is interest income. About 800,000 of that is partner program revenue, 104,000. We're anticipating. We just started. We're gonna have a new park event management services. So we're anticipating revenue to this slightly in the next year. The next slide just shows it in real time or over time, our property taxes, how much they've increased over time. And so this just shows from 1920, we're at 11.6 million. And then over time in fiscal year 22-23, we're at 14.24 million. And then in the dark blue, 24-25 at 15.6 million. And then what we're projecting 17.26 million. So it's increasing. So from 1920 to 26-27, it's about 46% increase in property taxes.
Used to be total revenue about 10 million.
Correct.
Okay.
Wow.
You're telling the real story.
Yeah, we go back a couple of years, yeah, we'll see that. the trends, right? But the property tax growth is just, it's indicative that property tax and construction properties are the biggest driver here. And a lot of it is driven by the change in ownership and also the construction of homes. And then this is historical of the ERAF revenue. 1920, we had 1.78 million in ERAF. And then it increased to 2.4 million in 21-22. That's that pink or magenta color. And then you see how it dipped down to 2.339 million in 22-23. It went down. So we were like, oh, what are we doing? Should we budget it lower or not? But we kept it at 2.5 million. And then you can see over time it's been increasing. Last year we were at 2.77 million. This year we received 3,058,000. That's the most that I've seen we received here in Atherton. So again, we increased the budget. We anticipate 2,750,000. And if there's any changes in that, we're weathering that component. And again, this is the revenue below the line. It's not included in the total top side of the revenues.
Where was the budget, where was the projected budget throughout the years? Was it
Right.
generally in line with the outcome, or was it lower? Was it generally lower except for that 1 year?
And most other years before we moved it to 2.5 million, it was like at 2 million. So it was right in line. So I think, yeah,
It
in
was
the,
low.
Generally, the projections were lower
Yeah, it
than
was- they
what
were
they
lower.
really.
they were
Well,
lower.
and
I think,
it might be worthwhile over time to add bullets to the line of where that was, just so the people who were looking at it would know what.
where we had it at
Yeah,
one point.
yeah, where our thinking would be, and so if we were to change it, over time, just a line chart underneath, on top of that would make it sort of like,
But Robert did
It's
take
normal
our
to be
input
like-
last time, they raised it to 2.75, the same thing with the property tax up to
Yeah.
5.1.
right,
Make it, based on our input from the last.
Yeah, I
Bill
think.
has those numbers memorized from this whole time here.
Right. I think at one point, I think we had it just like at 1.3 million for the
Yes.
most part.
Like 1.25.
Yeah, 1.25.
It was way down there for a while.
Yeah, because one year I think in 2012, we only got like 700,000.
And there used to be a lot more state agitation around, we're gonna take ERAF away.
Yeah.
That's sort of dwindled down a little bit now, and in fact, they targeted a basic amount that they're gonna provide agencies. And now VLF is the new target,
That's because everybody has the,
yeah.
so you take it away from everybody.
All right,
Not everybody has ERAF, so.
but there's only a few,
counties.
very few counties that have ERAP, but does VLF apply to basically all the counties?
The in lieu fee, it used to be your, well,
It was
was it Davis or Schwarzenegger
Schwarzenegger.
that eliminated the
It was a swap.
vehicle license fee?
Yeah. And this was to get this was like the swap for it, right? They'll take the vehicle license fee and then in turn give us property tax for it.
Well, because that was local revenue.
But yeah. So, but yeah, it's good, note. We'll bring that just for reference, where we used to have it in the now, so. Yeah, we're increasing it to 2.75 in this 26.7 budget. And then again, just kind of go over just the major fiscal changes within the departments. The building department increased to 214,000. Majority of that increase is due to the building life and safety contract services amount. Majority of that is that 214,000, probably like 187 of that amount is due to the contract. And again, the contract is revenue driven, so the higher the revenue is, the higher the expense is. If the revenue is low, or expenditure is low on that. Public Works has an increase of 147,000. Some of that's salary and benefit adjustments, but and inclusive of the UAO. And then there's adjustments to various contract services, mainly the MCE and BrightView. We're reviewing the MCE contract, and there's some increases in there as we review that contract.
And you have the $3,000 per month for the startup of the event management.
Mhm. Yes,
That's all.
and that's in this park event services. Yeah, I think the total is 30 30 grand?
No.
74.
For 3 months.
It was like
and then-
seven, I
then
think we
it's
budgeted
1,000 a month.
75.
Yeah,
Yeah.
75, so it includes the
The base
monthly
fee
base fee, which is about
and
30%
estimated percentage of revenue.
revenue share.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, and it's, I put it in the staff report, I didn't highlight it, I just did the total number, but it's in there, correct. Yeah, we put that, and then tree maintenance, there's increase in tree maintenance, for this year expenses, so, that has gone up. And then facility maintenance cost, the beautiful buildings cost a lot of money to maintain. And then this slight increase in the, interdepartment, majority of this is the, insurance, IT, contract services increased about 12,000. And then we're gonna update the connectivity for the Wi-Fi here at the campus, and that's probably about 35,000, so that's the increase that we're gonna need to fund.
Robert,
Yes.
so since this is separately budgeted, it means, does it not, that you're not charging this out to other departments,
The,
your department?
the.
Otherwise,
No.
yeah.
No.
So it's like, just like an overhead.
Yeah, it's just like an overhead. This isn't, the other ones that do get charged is like the internal service fund, but this is, yeah, just like a catch-all. Like IT services are basically here, we don't charge different departments of that cost, it's just captured in here, correct?
Including PD? Or is
Including-
there,
PD, if there's special projects that PD needs in addition to the IT, we will, we
Yeah.
budget in the PD department. The next one was the police department, so the net increase is 107,000, and again, some of this adjustments is salary benefit adjustment of 2.5. This is inclusive of UAL, so it's 304,000 for the salary benefit adjustment. UAL is a decrease of 157,000, and it was written in the staff report because of the 3 million ADP, they reduced the amount that we allocate this year to the PD public safety class. So the net is 147,000. OPEB operation settings that we would have, 395,000 of that, 530 would be in this fund. Operational expenditure decrease total of 39,000. Majority of that decrease was listed in the staff report, a lot of it because there was supplemental equipment that purchased this year, replacement of firearms that is not taking place next this upcoming year, so that's majority of why the decrease in operational expenditure. Overtime budget increased about 25,000, and only just to reflect the CPI increase of the 2.5%. And then overall, these are just other increases, equipment maintenance, vehicle expenses gone up, printing, recruiting, citation, materials and other supplies about 40,000 is the increase on that. And then summary reserves, so this just kind of shows where our general fund revenues to expenditures have been in the last couple of years. So you notice in 21-22, we we're at 23.7 million in revenues and 26.5 million in expenditures. This is when we're coming out of the finishing the town center project. So you know, we were using the general fund unallocated balance to finish that component. And you can just see that our revenues over time, other than 22-23, it's been kind of revenues are higher than our revenues, our expenditures. So this year we're at 28.97 in revenues to 23.3 in operation expenditures. So we're good. More revenue than expensive. Better to see it this way than the other. Right?
I'm telling you, we're not spending enough money.
No, we are. Let's just,
Yeah, you gotta be able to do the work. You know, we may have a lot of projects we could do, but you know, we've got one Robert and he's got a team and there's so much we can get done.
that'll be another discussion, but yes, correct. Do what we can. So this is just the ending fund balance, just projections, again, just showing that, you know, adding our revenues, our URAF, our total available funds, and then our COP debt is 861,000. This is the debt that we're paying off the building. This would be sunset in 2030. We have other opportunities. We're already paying this, so we have opportunities after the fact of the use of these fundings in the future. Operating expenditures, 23.3 million. This year, we have a transfer out of the CIP to the CIP of 2.265 million. This is based off of what we went off last year in the CIP Outlook tool. So that's taking that into account here, how this could change as we get to the final iteration of the budget. So this leaves us with 13.8 million projected ending fund balance for 26-27.
So, I think I had a question about it, on the debt service. If we were to prepay a certain amount, does that save us any money? No?
There was a 5-year call on that
Yeah.
COP that we decided not to.
Okay.
It's
Thanks.
2%.
Yeah, okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, we built that in there just in case. Yeah, that was last year of June and decided we won't call it in 5 more years and we were able to pay it and budget it and
Okay.
so then the fund balance, here's our fund balance of that 13.8 million. This is how it breaks out. We have that 15% emergency reserve of 3.5 million. We have our 15% contingency operating reserve. So we meet these reserves, back those out, and our general fund unallocated reserve balance is 6.8 million. And then again, CIP funding spreadsheet, sorry. We're gonna study the CIP at the May 6th study session. We have the, in your staff report in the packet was the modeling spreadsheet. It's gonna assist us and help us to master plan our project implementation for the next couple of years. Again, it created set aside buckets where we would take that 5 million and put it into different buckets for within our capital improvement program. And then as the council identifies the high level capital priorities, we implement those. That movement of money into those buckets. It only includes the current and the prior budget information. We will are funded, so only current and prior are funded. So the last couple of years in that pool have been funded, and then the current one that we're budgeting is funded for. Again, the CIP, there's always just a 5-year outlook, 5-year CIP, but the first year of that CIP is what budgeted.
So when we get the CIP pack, it's going to show projected costs to do stuff, how much money is left over from the previous, right? You know, because we've like got projects that we funded, like the playground, but we haven't gotten them going. You know, we funded it last year, you know.
Yeah,
So
we've
we want to see how much
executed the
money's left
contract for
over. That was the question that came up at the last meeting. I forget who asked it, maybe Polito. But, and if it wasn't him, then I apologize, but I said, how much money do we have that's in suspense that we planned on spending, but we haven't yet because we haven't gotten around to the projects, or maybe the need for the projects has fallen down.
Yeah, we'll identify that.
Yeah.
So in here, I just highlighted the 25-26, the CIP budget. It has that 5.55 million in the general fund transferred out into the CIP fund. And just a reminder, it includes some outside grant and library funds to the CIP were also allocated to it. But this is just a breakdown of that amount that we were funding. So 2.35 was drainage, master plan projects, 1.2 was traffic safety, and 40 was the road and maintenance, and then park was 530 and so on, 400 by debt. So this is what are part of those buckets that were in.
About the Virginia Museum, what is that?
It's not big enough.
Yeah, it's
Not big enough?
They're gonna finish it.
We didn't put money in there, it's just, we had allocated from the operations side. Yeah, so, so again, this is where the buckets of money that were issued as far as where that funding went. Again, we have, we'll review that at the CIP, but I don't know if you wanted to go through that.
No, we can do it at the CIP.
Okay,
CIP.
so this spreadsheet was sent for your purpose information, so it's updated to current and all that information that for 25-26 are these projects, and then the 26-27 we'll blow those. Yeah. But right now, in the budget for next year, 26-27 is 2.265.
Plus there's the carryover.
Unless that changes.
Unless that changes, correct, right. But I put that in there because that's what, that was the last where we left
I
off,
understand.
so.
Yeah, but there's a lot carryover and there was a lot of money in there for complete streets and on El Camino, we really aren't moving forward on a lot of that stuff at this point in time, you know, so. Then we got the one roundabout, but it's not in yet, and, you know, it's going, you know.
Right.
So,
I think it's not that the money's not needed, I think it's just. the way-
Projects are awarded.
Yeah.
They just take.
yeah.
Correct.
Playground, every time I go to the light, to the park, I hear about the playground, where is it?
It's on its way. It's on its way.
Yeah, that was, we just had the pre-fund today.
Excellent.
My favorite meeting of the year is the CIP meeting.
Yeah,
It's been
exactly.
big bucks, baby, let's talk about it.
Yeah, so I tried to go fast, I'm sorry.
And they just put it in a bank account.
One of the things though that is always challenging about a municipal budget is making it readable, user-friendly to the public. And so one of the things we've added to Robert's website is a dashboard for the town's budget. And so that is up on your screen there. This is what the public sees if they can go look at the fiscal year 25-26 budget dashboard. And it's a general summary, easy to read, interactive. You can highlight different parts of the budget. This is the current year's budget. Talks about the revenue composition, the revenue categories, gives you all the percentages. And then talks about year-over-year comparisons for revenues in each of the different categories. Expenditures by department.
How far back does the historical?
This is just the first year we've done this,
So
so,
you didn't add past years?
no. And then departmental comparisons year over year estimated to budget. And then the book talks about the below the line transfers that we do and where they go out to the CIP fund, employee benefits fund. And then talks about the CIP projects and gives the different projects and their budgeted amounts for that current year and how much we do in each category. And then, of course, some general statistics on our reserves and our community profile and information on our pension. So we're gonna do this same sort of dashboard once we complete this budget, and then we'll start having a
History.
So on where the revenue comes from when you're showing, you know, all the total property tax revenue and all these other things, you got like the
Yeah.
giant thing says fire district and then. a
That's
little
another
thing
section
says
of the
tax
website.
Town of Atherton.
We have that on another section of the
Oh, okay.
website, yes.
How do you find this
This
site,
is,
like from the homepage,
So
for a
this-
regular person?
right now you go to government administration, and then you go to finance. And on the finance page, toward the bottom is the
There's
fiscal
Robert.
year 25-26 budget dashboard, and it takes you right to the budget dashboard.
Probably should want to die.
We can add a link elsewhere on the site as well.
Yeah, I would have it in that government tab. Pull down.
Cool.
Yeah, I could add it on a common request, but you can use the chatbot, and that's right on the homepage and search it, and it'll give you the link right from there too.
Yeah, 4 clicks down to that probably is a little more than
This
you
is
A
want.
little more
a,
than
this is
most
a good
people
resource,
go.
it's just
Yeah.
hard to find, so,
Everything's hard to find on this website.
Yeah, I agree with that.
yes.
Well, it's there, you just have to.
You just gotta talk to George and find out.
You gotta talk to George, that's
Tell me where it's at.
Yeah.
That's someone who knows. But if you do click on any of the government here, it does drop down to a menu of, you know, Appleton history,
Yeah,
Centennial.
like, there should be a,
Finance.
where finance, big
Right.
old dashboard finance in
Right.
this.
We do have one over there on the right about town budgets, fiscal transparency, data.
Does that
takes
go
you
to the same place?
No, those two go to, one takes you to all of the town's historical budgets. The other takes you to the fiscal data transparency portal, which is a fancy word for a much more interactive, open gov way to look at the town's budget,
No,
If you're having problems sleeping.
if you're having trouble sleeping. Yeah, exactly. People like Tom are very interested in this.
Yeah. You probably won't go to sleep.
This is how he wakes up in the morning, gets fired up for the day.
Yeah.
All right,
All right,
Any questions? That was my presentation.
very good.
It's pretty quick.
You gonna be okay?
Cool.
so your next item?
All right, our next item is PD.
The chief still here?
Chief is
Oh, there
here.
he
He's
is.
got a big old coffee. He's ready to.
ready.
You doing undercover today? What's the story?
Barely remembered it was 3 o'clock. Thanks, Brittany, for the reminder. Hi, Mayor, council members. So what we have to discuss today is school resource officer and some specially paid for therapy dog handler. The recommendation just up front is to add a police officer to our staff that would be designated as a second school resource officer for mental out there in high school. Then also recommending consideration and approval of specialty pay for Sergeant Fong, who's our therapy dog handler for Emmy, the Wonder Dog. People love that dog. He steals my thunder all the time. By way of background on the school resource officer, I asked, and I couldn't find out the real question, for at least the last 40 years, you've had school resource officers assigned to mental health in schools. A lot has changed with the population, what's happening at school in the last 40 years. It's a school population plus staff of about 3,000 people. I grew up in a small town of 1,200 people that have full-time police department and fire department. And so you are dealing with, a good sized small town with a bunch of kids, a lot of technology, a lot of different things going on. In the last 5 years is when George, you can help me out, when we entered into an agreement with the school district because of the resources that they were draining from the police department to pay for 50% of the school resource officers' salary and benefits. And I do believe it's time to add an additional one there. In the last 3 or 4 years, the average calls for service is about 700 per school year. And that's not really capturing the entire picture of what our one school resource officer, who is extremely capable, a former high school teacher, former wrestling coach, does an outstanding job and going in so many different directions. With that many people on campus, that large a campus, he's often dealing with 2 things at the same time. It's increasingly asking for police officer from the street to respond. He's handling too many things on his own. We've had conversations about that because he doesn't want to impact the officers on the street. He's capable, but it's just getting increasingly complex. And I think what really brought something to the forefront for me was that in the last few weeks, 2 14-year-old students were caught on campus with a loaded 9mm ghost gun with a 30-round extended magazine. One of them had no business on campus, but that's just a recipe for disaster. And so we do feel that it is time to increase the presence, not just from security and policing, but a school resource officer has also a big task with developing relationships with the student, providing education. He's not able to do that. And that coupled with the increased impact to our limited resources on the street is why we feel, or I feel, it's necessary to add an additional school resource officer. I'll stop on that one and take any of your questions.
I have 2 questions. Is this something that, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen for this school resource officer? Has the administration for the school weighed in on this, which is a separate issue from the budget, which is the board, the
Right,
school board?
so I have sent an email to the superintendent. I have not received a response yet, and I was waiting until the decision today to further reach out to their finance director, because I believe their budget cycle is in the same and they're building it at the same time. We've had these conversations before with previous superintendent, that goes back several years, where they understood the need. We started that conversation then and just kind of had left it with the change in administration. So this isn't new to them.
So and more that having another officer on campus can make I know some school administrators in the past have not been very cooperative with our SRO. So is this something that staff is supportive of?
I don't think you're going to find that with this school district and the staff, especially the parents, with the work that we've been doing,
Okay.
the issues we've been encountering. When we did have a spat of guns on campus, that creates a lot of consternation for parents. We had a big meeting, overwhelming. They were asking that time for a second school resource officer. That was a previous superintendent that started that conversation.
Okay. Bill?
So going back in time, the very first time we started thinking about school resource officer, and the 50% was the number that we put down. It was 50% because that was about the amount of time we thought we had to spend more time at high school, but the other schools were gonna pay something. This person is gonna be full-time there. So in my mind, they should be really paying for about 75%. I discount the number because George and I looked at the amount of calls and issues and stuff like that, and in December and in the end of, the summertime, everything goes down to almost nothing. So I think a starting point with the negotiations should be a little bit higher. I also say that because I don't think that the school administration, especially with the latest thing, which cost us some money, I felt like we kind of got thrown under the bus. And there was a time when they said, hey, we can't pay you at all, we're not gonna pay you. And so if that were to happen, I would want to see a contract that calls out what they're going to pay. And if in fact they say we don't want it anymore, and we have to do a reduction in force, which maybe we can reapply people, but they would pay all the severance costs. Because we're eating the cost for a car. That's not being included in his cost. And, there's downstream effects. So I'd like to suggest that if you start the negotiations, we have a number that's higher than 50%, but no, you could come back to 50 if you have to. But then a contract that also says, look, if you guys change your mind, that's fine. But if we hired the guy, you're responsible for the severance or whatever, because, we can't be eating this stuff because, their administration goes back and forth. And, it was very evident, it's been evident that ever since we started this program, but really with the last incidences that we've had over here, I just have not really felt that the school showed an appreciation for the work that your group does. And that, they was like, hey, no, it was them. And so that's my 2 cents. So start with a little bit higher number, know where you can go back to, make sure there's a severance in there. And, I gave, for the people that haven't been on the council, the reason why the 50% was made, because it wasn't 50%. We said, hey, that's a great number. It was, it was based on that they were allocated all over the place. Okay, thank you for at least listening.
And those are good comments, and I think George and Robert and I, before we even entered into that meeting, would have those discussions, and we're into that. And Bill, you remind me of a couple things. I'm not saying that incident where we had the lawsuit wouldn't have happened. It's an example where I forget where our school resource officer was on campus. It is an example of maybe where there was another one. You could put that, put it to bed earlier. Secondly, I forgot to add what changed the dynamics in the school population in the last several years. There used to be a rule where students could select which school they wanted to, or not select. They changed it back to where they could select. And so we have a lot more local kids from surrounding communities that have concentrated in MA, which we have, not casting aspersions on different groups, but it has dramatically changed the dynamic in that school population.
Right. And I'm okay with the stipend for Sergeant Vaughn as well.
Different issue.
That's all in there.
On the current SRO, how much time does he spend on MA versus other schools?
If you remember, when we entered into the agreement, some of the other schools were paying part of that. We then changed that because we realized he needed to be on campus full time.
On MA?
On MA. And to compensate for the other schools, we established an adopted school program where we have a designated officer who's on patrol that is for Encinal and Laurel and Las Lomitas. So that is working out very well. And when there's something more serious at the schools, they work up with the school resource officer. But he's now full time on MA high school.
Okay, so the current SRO is full-time in MA, and the second SRO would be
Full time at MA.
Well, that's an interesting thing, along with what Bill talked about. Originally, it was designed to be less time at the high school and spread around, so the 50% actually.
What actually was being picked, part of it was being picked up by the other
Right,
schools.
right.
So they're not doing that anymore
Right.
because we're not allocating that person that
Right.
way.
So it's almost as if we want to go up on both, people that would be considered. Anyway,
Yeah.
the school district may not have the money for it, but the other thing that we've got to look at is what our risk assessment is, relative to not being helped enough by the school district on the downside.
Well, they don't. If we don't have an SRO over there and there's a problem, then they're gonna call our people and they're gonna have to come out for patrol and go
Right.
there. There's a benefit to us and to the
Right.
community for having somebody over
Right.
there,
Right,
okay?
who's
So,
trusted and has
but,
knowledge.
well, they just need to pay a little bit.
Yeah, I just think, yeah, I agree with Bill, is that, that this time they need to show that it's really a commitment. That's meaningful to them. So it'd be nice to have them go higher.
How does the contract work now? To Bill's comment about a severance, if they decide they no longer wanted an SRO, what happened? What's that process?
There's no severance in there now, and, I think the chief, since he's been there, has won one lobster dinner for being fully staffed. So there's always a vacancy, so when I was talking to Bill, I would said more than likely, if the officer was no longer needed at the school, or they weren't gonna pay for it, contract was canceled, we would move them back in through some sort of
Yeah,
attrition.
I think through attrition.
Except I didn't get a lobster dinner.
No, you didn't.
But it would be, but then so I'm just curious, if we are fully staffed and we have two SRO officers that were no longer needed. And there's like a lot of protection, like how does,
We probably would.
There's no way that we're gonna end up with no SRO being needed.
Yeah.
I mean, we have an obligation to the school.
Yeah.
Now,
I'm
I
not
think the
saying
school
get rid of
has
it.
an obligation to pay for that.
Yeah.
And my next question is, well, what are other school districts in the surrounding area do, like Carmont?
That one I can't come up for sure. I don't think we're alone in the cost share. And there might be, I can't remember the Belmont chief, I just spoke with him about it. If they're doing 100% there, I don't know. But it's something I could
What about
definitely,
Redwood City?
I don't know.
No, okay.
That'd be worth finding out, to make sure that we're on par.
Yeah, we should find out.
Yeah.
I think that's important. And I think we should ask the school to cover 75% of the cost of each of them.
Right, I agree.
Sequoia Union School District is challenged, right? They just shut down Tide Academy. They've got some issues. And I think we don't want a problem there. It's our jurisdiction, so we've got we have a need to do that. I think it's a reasonable request. It obviously needs to be articulated to the school, and the superintendent's got to get on board.
I think if they look at it too from a risk liability framework for them, with lawsuits. Unfortunately, fortunately, serious incidents in town are rare. Unfortunately, most of the serious incidents we have are related to MA. So if something is going to happen, it is going to happen there. And it behooves them and us, to make sure we're doing everything that we can possible. I'm not saying that we had 2 or 3 SROs that something still couldn't happen, but I think it's going to dramatically reduce the possibility of that happening.
Do they have any plans to make that campus more closed access?
No, it's funny you bring that up. When we had the spat of gun-related incidents, and we had a crowd of, I think about at least 100 that we were dealing with, that came up, about we should fence it off, and we should do metal detectors, we should do all this stuff. The majority of people said, no, we don't want our school like an inner city prison, which I agree with. And it would be almost impossible to fence that off and then doing metal detectors. That has since gone away. They've done the hardening and the training, the locks on the doors and the shelter in place. We have all that in place, but anything beyond that, no.
Yeah, I don't think that scene they don't have metal detectors, but that's a really highly open campus
Yeah.
compared
It
to
would
many
be,
that you see around.
it would be almost impossible to make it a prison.
If there's council support for it, we would put this in the budget as a frozen position until we hammered out an acceptable agreement.
Yeah, we need to keep our kids safe.
What do you think of it? Well, I think it's a necessary thing and it helps us, but you know, we've been through the ringer with that different administrations. And we just need them to be committed and pay a reasonable share.
I have one more quick question on the other, when you're ready to go to the other half of this.
Talking about the dog?
Yeah,
Yeah, and I can present just a little bit more on it. So Emmy, our Wonder Dog, our therapy dog program, it's been overwhelmingly successful. We have leveraged the heck out of her, both internally and externally. And this is in the last short year that we've had her. The program is supported by Hearts for Heroes. It's a free program, but our PAL provides through, and also our POA, a $5,000 a year donation in return, but they also take care of all the grooming, all the vet's bills, everything else that goes with it. So for low cost, it's been a very effective program. Canines overall in our current MOU, and the current MOU was developed before we had a therapy dog program, provides for specialty pay and some overtime for kennel handling for our canine tracking dogs. As you can imagine, come with a high liability, high risk, a lot of training, much more involved and in depth than a therapy dog. And I'm not, poo-pooing the therapy dog program, but I don't think it rises to the same level of specialty pay. And I think it could be seen negatively by my canine handlers, which is why I'm recommending 2.5%, which is about $5,000 to cover the fees and its time related to the specialty handling position, and also not the handling overtimes I don't think is needed for the therapy. That's my rationale for the reduction and my recommendation.
I support it.
yeah, I support it too. I just want to make sure that in doing that we're actually coming up with a job description that's unique from the other dog.
We have that.
Okay, good. That's all I was care about. All right, good.
And if I take Amy for a walk, can I get something?
No, you don't get paid at all. In fact, you have to make a donation.
Yeah.
I'll give you a bag of chips.
Anything else?
You should have to pay to walk the dog.
Okay, does
Thank you.
anyone else have
Thank you
any
very
other-
much. I appreciate the good question.
So is that gonna?
Oh, Rick has a question.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Not on this, I'm fine with this, and $5,000 is a relatively small amount. I'm still thinking about the SRO, because if we go to 75% from the school district for each SRO, we're then paying 50% of the SRO, which is what we're currently paying for one. So we're staying at the same, but we're incurring some additional costs because we're taking on another automobile, we're taking on some more obligation, and there are all kinds of things related to any police officer that we're having to take on. So, and that's a much bigger cost than the $5,000.
Right, the risk.
So I think it's important that be laid out to them in a way that, says, we're stepping up here, but you have a need that you need to take responsibility for.
I'll keep you posted on the progress.
Great, thanks.
Good job.
I just wanted to make sure there's no public comment on this item.
No one in the room, is anyone
I'll
online?
look for you.
There's nothing online, no.
And there's no action that we take in this session.
No, this direction.
Right, direction, okay.
Okay,
Hey, Brittany's
Brittany.
here. Look at this, and is this like the normal time? You'd start in 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, council members, Brittany Bendix, town planner. I'm giving you a brief report on where we're at with Memphis College. Essentially, George and I had been meeting with members of the Atherton Housing Coalition to kind of understand the progress steps that they were making. At some point, it came up that it would be beneficial to bring on a professional to develop concept plans that would then be used in the fundraising efforts to get the housing constructed on Menlo College's campus. in the discussions of outlining what would be necessary in order for the council to provide funding for that, which is outlined in your staff report. The members of the coalition indicated that they were not willing to continue working on this effort anymore. And so now staff is here before you trying to determine what the next preferred step would be, if staff should take on project management of developing what would just be a concept plan at this point, that in theory we would then hand off to a fundraising committee to solicit funding. That's pretty much where we've left off in the strategy of getting housing constructed on Menlo College. So we wanted to make sure that we raised this issue to you and had an opportunity to discuss it.
I've got a question. So what's the fundraising committee? Because everything, this is to be done for a fundraising committee. I was very involved in the creation of and failure with the fundraising committee that raised money for this facility. And I don't know who this fundraising committee is.
Right, and we don't have a defined committee outlined, nor have we really discussed exactly who would participate in it. I believe that we've gone as far as to indicate that it wouldn't be the council members, that it would need to be separate and distinct from that, and that we know that the Atherton Housing Coalition did not at any point indicate that they wanted to participate in that, right? So the nature of the fundraising committee is still nebulous and out there undefined.
So, you know, there's a question of stability with the school. There's a lot of discussion, rumors, etc. Other colleges like Harvard and others, you know, talking to the president of the school and the board of regents to, you know, to have a satellite campus here, and you know, their funding has been cut because of the fact that they had a lot of international students, and the current administration's issues have slowed that. Pell Grants have come down. I'm just not sure that they're as stable as we would hope that they will be. I see more stability with Menlo School. They're not going away. And there's a question about, well, you know, they charge a lot for their tuition. Should they pay or not pay? But put that aside, you know, do I think that we could spend $100,000 or $200,000 or $1 million to do a design for Menlo College, and then they would change their mind. Just like I assume that Carol spoke to them and to develop her thing, and then when she did all the work and they were about to draw up some designs, then everything changed. And so while it's 60 some odd apartments, and I'd love to have those 60 apartments, and I'd love to see that school grow, because, you know, I taught over there. I do have some allegiance to the school, but I just don't have the confidence that whatever we would invest in is going to happen. I'd rather that we change our focus to the other side of the property line. That's how I feel. So I'm not in favor of moving forward at this point in time. And I'm sorry, and I'm sorry to Mr. Stephen Weiner, but I just don't have a warm feeling that things are going to work out regardless of what we do. He doesn't want to put any money into it. They've made promises that they're going to, have a fundraiser. The fundraiser was supposed to start this year. I haven't heard anything about it. That's what they said last year. It was going to start in 2026. So that's now. So, I'd hate to let those things go away and those number of units, but I think we're doing pretty well with some of our other things. And so I'm comfortable then hopefully we can work something out with, on the other side of the property line. That's how I feel. I'm not in favor of putting any money into it.
Okay, do you have anything?
Unless it's staff time. I mean, George mentioned to me that perhaps you could spend some time with them and get them doing something that they would invest in, but
Them being the school.
College.
either at the college.
Yeah, my whole thing on the college is their fundraising potential compared to Menlo School is dramatically different. The Menlo School has a percent of the student body that is Atherton residents and has a fundraising capability. Menlo College doesn't have anywhere near that. So if the fundraising that they'd have to be doing would be about the idea that we need more high density housing in town, which is a tough sell for not having any kids in the campus. So I've been concerned all along on this is how committed they are to spend the effort they need to do to develop it. And if they were, this is the cheap part. If they were to buy this and say, okay, we've got a plan, we're gonna invest in this thing that we're actually gonna do it. So we've got the money to do the plan. Then we can go out and sell the fundraising part. We might figure out a way to be part of that somehow. But if they're not willing to at least come up with a plan, then I don't think it's worth the time for us yet to do it. And I agree, Menlo School is a much better partnership in terms of the initial partnership. I don't know what we would do with them because I think their need would be different than that. So that'd be another thing we'd have to figure out, but of the two schools, it's not even close in terms of which one to support.
And Sacred Heart is getting, the president of Sacred Heart is retiring next year. So there's gonna be a new president and maybe they'll change their mind
Right.
on what they can do on that corner of Valparaiso.
Right. Yeah, if the college were to, if Menlo College were to say, hey, we'd like to take this corner off and parcel it out and make it a different zone to separate it, then I might be more interested because then it would be like available property, but not the way they're approaching so far.
When you say take this part out, you mean the parking lot next to Alejandro?
Yeah, right. And there's be coming up with a different strategy in terms of.
That would be making it available to the public.
Right.
As a money-making thing for
Right.
the college.
Right, which they might need more in the short term than.
Which they don't seem to be interested in really. I mean, they've never pushed that
Yeah.
strategy. They've always insisted that they would only support it if it were their people in there.
Right.
And if their people weren't gonna go in there, they couldn't offer it to third parties. I mean, they could if they want to, but they haven't indicated any interest.
Because they do their own security. They don't want the public in there and then now there's a ruckus and then they have to always have Atherton police in there.
Right.
They don't want to have that.
I understand, but they also haven't shown a strong commitment to the space either.
So you said that they're talking to Harvard Business School?
That's what I've heard. I've heard that they've talked to several colleges, universities, one being Harvard.
But recently or not? Because I know Mark Stevens talked to Harvard College, and at the time he did that, Chop made it very clear that Menlo College wouldn't be interested.
Yeah, I can't say, but when I
That
spoke,
was years ago.
yeah,
Maybe-
when I spoke with Van also mentioned to me that he heard that there was other colleges. So I don't know
I mean,
how
that
true it all is, but
seems
that's
like
what I've heard. They've all been
A real
rumors.
possibility to me if somebody decided to step up and make it happen, but somebody's gonna make that happen.
Yeah. But probably the people who are talking to them are the same people that are talking to Notre Dame, to Muir.
Right.
Because they've been in conversations with people
Yeah.
too, same colleges from what I understand, but, I'm not party to any of those conversations. But I just don't see them doing anything. Like I said, my real feeling is we have a better chance of success for something on the other side of the property line.
Right.
As opposed to with them, because they hadn't really shown, he's shown interest, but not interest, and it's changed.
Well, interest but not commitment.
Yeah, and you know, the key thing is that, yeah, we weren't in the conversations with Carol and Stephen and his team when they were doing the initial thing. But then for everything to change, and now suddenly we need a parking garage and all this other stuff seemed like it was a surprise. And then Carol just said, forget it.
Carol backs up. That's significant.
Yeah, I think, I don't care about the money, I care about the leadership. So I think if they came back to us with a plan of, we have a nonprofit, or we have a new hire or whatever, like, I think we need that housing to happen so that we don't have to rezone other parts of the town. And so I think if they came forward and said, here's our plan, will you guys provide seed money or matching funds for a fundraising campaign, I think we would all be supportive of that, because that's a lot more specific than this is. I don't think it's appropriate for staff to shepherd a design process through without active participation from the people who are gonna actually see it through, which it feels like there's a gap. There's a lack of connection there. So I don't want us to cut checks for things that are not likely to succeed. So
Why don't we have George go talk to Stephen and find out what kind of commitment he's willing to make once and for all. I don't know. I think, you say, hey, look, we're concerned that nothing's gonna really happen. We tried to get this group to move forward. They did some things. It turned out that there was a miscommunication of some sort. Who knows? But we need to know what you're doing on a concrete basis before we do anything, because, we're spending taxpayer dollars if we were to spend anything at all. And, I don't know how you feel about that.
The last time we chatted with Stephen about whether or not they could put some commitment behind what they need, like a staff person or somebody there that could work with the town and work with the housing coalition. They were reluctant to do that, didn't have the money to fund somebody to do that. But I think that is one sign of commitment on their part, that they really want this housing to happen. More than happy to go out and sit down with Stephen. Brittany and I can sit down and chat about what the town can do to help, how we can assist one of their people at the table, and then come back to the council with what that looks like.
Yeah, I'd like them to come and, after that, I'd like them to come and talk to us. I want to hear their story firsthand, because I think that's the other part of this. I want to, in my experience, anybody who's totally committed wants to get access to the people who make the decision so they can make their own case. I haven't heard their own case yet.
Yeah, and it's not really the housing coalition that's,
yeah.
at the end of the day, asking for the money. It's the college that needs this
Right.
support. So I would agree with that. Once we chat with them, bring them to the table.
And the intention is, like, we need that house, they want that housing, but like, we need that housing
Right.
for our housing element
Right.
so that's why, like, I would love to give the money to have this really happen. It's the, to have this really happen part that I'm,
Yeah, I agree.
happy.
That phrase is missing.
That's a really key, like, I don't know if there's
Sure.
some thoughts.
We've tried to keep a quarterly cadence with these updates, so I would suggest that we come back in another 3 months with an update and hopefully attendance of Menlo College if they're interested in continuing.
Or faster if they were ready.
Yeah, well, but I'm also, hearing some interest in working with Menlo School, and I think that some of the more recent state laws that we've embraced give Menlo School opportunities that they weren't really aware of or interested in 6 months ago. Was it 6 months ago where we kind of started this effort, reaching out to the two separate entities? So we might be able to then bring that back into the discussion and have more information shared and a robust dialogue on helping the Menlo School with a path forward as well.
Yeah, the college was gonna do 60 some odd apartments. With SB 79, we've got 60. between 110 and the location on Victoria Manor. So that, it all pencils out.
Well, it's
I'm not concerned about not making the numbers if we don't get Menlo College, because SB 79 has done that, and that's at the minimum. If they do more than what they're saying they're going to do, like, you know, maybe going up to 50.
Who's saying they're going to do? Who are you referring to? Menlo
The
School?
SB 79 people.
All this stuff and
One
They
ten.
don't have any proposal on,
No, because you can't accept any plans until July 1.
Does Brittany,
Or you have interest.
George is pointing towards Brittany like she has.
Good.
Oh, hi.
Do you want to?
Sure, so we do have a developer that's interested in developing on Glenwood. When I spoke to them, it was actually at one of the council meetings that they had sat through and attended on SB 79. At that point, they had mentioned that they were interested in doing actually the lower density range of 30 dwelling units per acre.
that's what they're interested in?
Yeah, and I think I've tried to characterize this before because I've heard it from other developers too. I know that there's a lot of fear that developers want to just maximize the density on these sites. But if they do that, then they don't appear as though they belong in Atherton. And the whole purpose of going after a site in Atherton is for that name and that address rights for them.
Yeah.
So it's really important to these developers that they actually do fit in somewhat. And so that's kind of the nature of where that developer was coming from. I haven't heard 50 dwelling units per acre. That's still substantially less than 120. But somewhere in that range. One of the things that I want to caveat that with though is that doesn't mean that 100% of those units will be at lower incomes, which is what we were anticipating with the school sites. Effectively because they would be kind of prorating those units at some level for their teacher housing or graduate student housing, that we were guaranteed something that would count towards those harder targets on our RETA allocation. So it's not just a clear trade of, well, if they do 50 units over here, then we don't need the 50 units over there.
It does provide though, multiple types of housing types in town that we don't have now. So we would, and check that box off in the housing element, but the affordability part's still a concern.
Well, when I went over to Menlo School, I told them that SB 79 had a minimum of 1750 square feet average. Didn't phase him at all.
Yeah, and
He says, oh, that's fine.
yeah, one of the comments that we got back from Menlo School when we first started meeting with them was just, well, yes, we want housing, it's important to our staff, but they also don't necessarily want to live on high school.
Yeah.
Right, so they were really interested in some other alternative approaches, and so that's why with SB 79, there is this opportunity that they can work with. But I think they need to do some more evaluation. George is working with them on the logistics of how the town might help or participate, which of course we would then bring to you for further feedback and discussion. And so that's where I'm seeing this conversation go. Probably maybe in July, because then SB 79 will be in effect and we'll have more of a sense of what other applications look like if they come in right at that point.
Yeah. Anyway, I had a good conversation with them. But most people did.
So what direction do you need from us?
I think I just told you what I'm
Yeah.
doing.
That's all we got.
I'll be back in July to talk about both the college and the school, hopefully with both in attendance.
We're both in,
Yeah.
if not sooner.
Okay, is there any public comment on this? There's no one. Great. Cool. Did it, all right.